Hey guys, this is Hell Hades. This is going to be one of the most requested videos I ever get about Raid. How do you control aggro? So for anyone who's played an MMO, aggro control is all about the tank, tanking up the damage. He's got a bunch of healers keeping him alive and the world is Gucci. In Raid, it's a bit different because you're not in control. You're basically setting the moves, you're setting turn orders, but then it's down to the AI to do the control. So what I'm going to do in this video is show you how to control the aggro in dungeons. I'm going to show you how to make sure the clan boss is slamming the person you want it to slam, and that will translate through things like arena, faction wars, and all that type of stuff as well. So what we're going to do, we're going to start in dungeons, and we're going to start with some basic rules. Basic rules about control, basic rules about aggro. And what I want to do, actually, I just want to thank Rust, who is another person in the kind of content creator world. He doesn't make videos himself, but he does a lot in the background, does some takeovers, that type of stuff. But he's also been pretty instrumental in helping people understand the clan boss aggro and how to make sure that your champs are not taking aggro. So I'm going to call him out. We had a chat about this just over Discord and helped me solidify some of my ideas. So thanks, Rust. Appreciate the support on this one. So let's just get into the basic rules before I actually show you some of this stuff in action. Basic rules are, firstly, any mob, any clan boss, anyone like that will target somebody they believe they can kill first. So if there's a kill potential, as in somebody on very low health who looks like a tasty little snack, that's going to be where the AI focus first, okay? If, let's assume everyone's full health, then and that easy kill potential goes out the window, the first thing the AI looks at is there somebody of a negative affinity to me, where I'm going to get a definite dominant hit, a definite strong hit, or a chance of a strong hit, an improved chance to crit, and therefore a bigger hit on the enemy. That's the second kind of thing. The next thing the AI considers is what buffs has that champion got? What buffs have they got on them right now that might sway me to decide to attack them or not? And we're going to buffs a little bit later. Then they'll look at who's got the lowest percentage HP left. And if percentage HP is equal, they'll just look for the lowest HP number. So if everyone's on 100% of their HP, then they'll say, okay, well, if I can't fight percentage HP, I'll look for the lowest HP number, whole number. And then lastly, if all those other things don't come into account, then the clan boss will just say, okay, the enemy will just say, what position are they in the turn order? So, and it starts with, I want to hit the leader, then I want to hit position 1, position 2, position 3, etc. So that's the kind of basis of aggro in this game. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you this in action in dungeons first, and then we're going to get onto clan boss after that. So let's begin with basic dungeon aggro. Okay, so what do we need to consider when we're trying to make sure that our damage dealers do not die and we were able to get through some of the aggro? So first thing we want to look at is what is the affinity of the boss we're fighting, because that means that's also going to be the affinity of the waves that we're fighting, okay? And it's wave control really that I'm looking at here. So if we look here, we've got level 20 in Ice Golem is Spirit Affinity, which means that the Spirit champs are going to focus Force first, yeah. Then they'll focus Void because it's neutral, or Spirit. So Spirit and Void are actually equal focus in terms of affinity. And the last thing they'll do is focus Magic Affinity. The only way that changes is if there's somebody that looks killable, or there's somebody that has considerably less buffs than the enemy. So if I was to set up here with these three as positive affinity, if I was to throw in just one negative affinity, being Sinacia, for example, and then one neutral affinity, being let's call it a Cold Heart. Perhaps we'll take one of these out as well, and we'll throw in a second neutral affinity, which would be green, okay? So the way this should work is the Spirit Affinity should focus Sinacia first. Once Sinacia's dead, they'll focus either Cold Heart or Armiger. Once they're dead, they move on to the magic guys. Now, because of health, they should say, we want to go for Armiger first because he's got the lowest health, providing I've got no buffs out there. Armiger first. He's got a high defense. Defense doesn't matter. They don't consider defense. They consider health. Once Armiger's dead, they should then move on to Coldheart, who's got more health but less defense. They don't consider defense. They consider health. So for dungeon mobs, we should go 1, 2, 3 in terms of order of them attacking us. So let's watch this through. This is before we start considering buffs, and buffs is a big part of where people get this wrong. This is like the real basics. We're going to move on to slightly more complex stuff. So I'm just going to A1 here, guys. I'm not going to try and be beating anyone up. I just want to show you the way they target. Just A1. They probably kill some people. Stop getting extra turns. A1. Okay. So we're going to slow it down. We should start to see them do some damage to us in a minute, hopefully. Here we go. Straight into Senacia. See that? Senacia, first target, as we just said, because Senacia is the weak affinity. Senacia dead. Coldheart's actually died at the same time, but you'll see now they focus in on Armiger next as their next target. So let's just speed that through. So this is what I'd class as like the basic knowledge, the basic understanding. They'll go for again, that was a counterattack, so you don't see the actual effect of it. But they're going for the affinities in order because everything else was the same. Now, buffs completely change the way the AI work, but it's actually very fiddly to make it consistent. So things like increased defense, things like block damage, things like counterattack actually change the way the AI behave. So if you've got 5 of your members with increased defense up and then suddenly it drops off of one of them, there's a good chance if that champion all of a sudden looks like a tastier snack, then the AI will start to focus in on that one champion that does not have increased defense on. So it's really important if you're doing things like spider runs to understand what buffs you're applying and when they're going to fall off and who. So in this setup here, we've got Senacia is the negative affinity, so she's going to be the one who takes initial damage. Everyone else is neutral affinity. They're all either the same or void, which makes it neutral. So if you see here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw up counterattack. We'll do counterattack first, and you'll see I'm just going to focus in on the spider. I'm not going to try and win from this fight. I'm just going to show you what goes on. So you see Armiger should be the second kind of priority. Second priority for these spiderlings. First priority is going to be the negative affinity. Then it's going to be Armiger. Then it should be my Coldheart. Now we're going for Armiger. He doesn't have counterattack up, so he still becomes the most interesting stack. Let's see if we can get that to switch to someone else. Okay, so we've lost our main tank. You see counterattack is on everyone still. It's about to come off of Steel Skull. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to heal up this Armiger, and you see that. So counterattacks come off of one champ, and the focus has changed from the spiderlings, not Armiger anymore. It's changed to Steel Skull. Steel Skull's even got a shield. The spiderlings don't care about the shield. They're scared of counterattack, so they've now switched their focus to someone that actually should be the last focus in the whole group. We're going to lose counterattack now for Valk. It'd be interesting. It should now switch from Steel Skull to Valk if they get another attack in between. So this should now be Valk as the next target. If Coldheart has a go, it will actually be Coldheart. So are any of these spiders about to go? This one might be. So they should go for... he's actually having a turn. So it's going to actually switch back now to Armiger, which is a shame. Because it was kind of showing through nicely. But it will switch back to Armiger because he's back as being the tastiest snack again. Out of these 3, Valk is meant to be the target. So I'm going to let it run through again until some of these counters drop off. So just to show you one more time, you'll see here Coldheart is actually the snack. Coldheart's the next lowest health champ. The spiderlings decided to target Steel Skull because Coldheart still had her counterattack up. Shows it again. It's exactly the same with block damage. It's exactly the same with increased defense. Done slam that one out, and now it's going to switch again because now they've realised that Coldheart doesn't have a counterattack up anymore. They've switched back to the Coldheart. So just as a bit of a recap for dungeons, guys. Affinity first, then the damage will go on to the person with the lowest overall health. Then it will look at buffs and defensive buffs, which it cares about are increased defense, counterattack, and block damage. And it will look for champions that have got those buffs dropping off. So just make sure that when you're building your teams up, that you either are not using those buffs or you're understanding when the buffs are going to drop off of certain champs, and you're making sure that you don't end up having your damage dealers become the target before they were due to. But your best setup will always be get somebody with a high base defense, like a Tyrell or any defense-based champion with a high base defense, build their defense up high and build their health relatively low, and make sure that your damage dealers, see we've got a 34k Tyrell here, make sure that your damage dealers have all got a higher health pool than your tanks. And normally that means that you need to put your damage dealers in an HP chest and your tanks in a defense chest. So that's the kind of basis of dungeons. Make sure that you understand who's going to be the aggro champ. Make sure that you understand what affinities you're throwing people into. If you've got a negative affinity, they're going to be the target and they need to be tanks. And make sure you understand what buffs you're bringing into the fray and whether they are going to affect the AI or not. Let's get into Clan Boss and see if I can show you some of the similar type of stuff with Clan Boss. So we move on to Clan Boss then. A load of people ask me about how does the stun work in Clan Boss. So the AoEs you've got no control over. They're going to hit everybody every single time. But the stun you do have control over. So it works much the same as I've just described. The first thing that the Clan Boss will look for is kill potential. Is there someone that thinks it can one-shot and kill outright? So that's the first thing it does. Second thing it does is it says, okay, if I can't kill someone outright, who have I got the affinity advantage over? So when the Clan Boss starts, it always starts as Void. If it's Void, it's got no affinity over anyone, so you ignore that step. But for all the affinity Clan Boss fights, it's looking for who's weak to me. So for this Clan Boss that I'm about to fight, he's going to be looking at the green affinity, the spirit affinity champs, and say, right, you look the most attractive to me. After that, it will look for buffs. So it will say, have the enemy got block damage on? Have they got increased defense up? Have they got counterattack up? If there's any one single champion that doesn't have one of those buffs, that becomes the target, as long as it's the other things that we've already spoken about aren't in play. If you're building an unkillable team, even more so than if you're building a normal team, it will always look for who's got the lowest HP percentage. And let me just try and spell that out for you in a sort of a visual way. So I'm just going to try and explain how percentage health works. And this is mainly important for unkillable teams, but it will just help you generally understand your knowledge of how does health in terms of the Clan Boss's view of health actually work. So the Clan Boss will look at all of the enemies and it will say who's got the lowest percentage of their health remaining. And we're not talking about an actual HP number, we're talking about a percentage of their health they've got. So on unkillable teams where you've got one or two champions going very low turn after turn, the Clan Boss is actually saying what percentage of your health is left, not what is the actual number of health points you've got. So in this situation, we've got a Martyr with 30,000 health, Steel Skull with 40,000, and a Seal with 25,000. Now, if they all took a hit and we went from Martyr took a hit of 50% of her health for 50,000, Steel Skull got whacked for 25,000 of his health, which was 62.5% of his initial hit points, and then Seal gets whacked for 10k, which is 40% of her hit points, they're all going to be left with the same physical number of HP. So all of them will be left with 15,000 hit points. However, the Clan Boss would actually target in this situation Steel Skull, because Steel Skull has lost the biggest proportion of his health. And what the AI is doing there is it's saying, well, Steel Skull must have the lowest defense because I hit him much harder than I hit everybody else. So I'm going to go for the one with the lowest percentage of their health left because I think they've got the lowest defense. So the AI actually makes sense. But when you're building your unkillable teams, you've got to make sure that the person that you want to be the tank, the person that you want to be taking hits, has actually got a bigger health pool, because they'll then regenerate more hit points, but in terms of percentage of health, they'll still be the juicy target for your team. So I hope that made sense. We're going to get into the actual clan boss fight. Now, just for info here, Scylla the Drakes has got no gear on, so she is naked. Therefore, she's got a very low HP pool, low defense. She should be, even though she's a neutral affinity to the clan boss, she should end up being the main target in this fight, because it should be the person that's got the highest kill potential for the clan boss. It might even happen in this first round, actually. So I was going to leave it a few rounds until they start to take some real damage. But if you see here, Scylla the Drakes is already losing quite a lot of health. She's the only one with increased defense up. So she didn't get targeted because of increased defense. She was the only one where the clan boss was like, I'm not targeting that buff. So I'm going to go for a negative affinity. And I'm going to go for the one that has got the lowest percentage health left out of both Martyr and Steel Skull. That's why the slam went there. What we're going to do is set up just the counterattack buff next, and I'll show you that one working. Okay, so in this instance, Scylla the Drakes is definitely the easy target. She is absolutely the lowest. She's killable, but because she's got counterattack up, again, the clan boss avoids Scylla the Drakes and goes for the negative affinity. So look, guys, I hope that's helpful. Just to reiterate the main points, the clan boss is going to focus on the easiest kill potential first. You see seals down here. It will then focus on the negative affinity champions if there is a negative affinity. Then it's going to look for buffs, and it's looking for mainly block damage, it's looking for increased defense, and it's looking for counterattack. If there's one person without those buffs when everyone else has got them up, it's going to go for the person without the buffs. That's really important if you're trying to run particular team comps and trying to make sure the same person is taking the stun all the time. If you're running a team which is unkillable, it's going to look for the lowest percentage health out of all your champs. You have to build your champions in a way that you can focus the stun in the right place, and that's done by making your stun target have high health and low defense, and making everybody else have higher defense and lower health. But just be aware, for the first round or two, it might not fall exactly that way. Rust has actually got a stun calculator to help you with that stuff. The other thing which we didn't talk about here is position. So in terms of positioning the teams, the clan boss, if everything is equal and we're on a void affinity clan boss, the clan boss will always target position 1 first, which is your lead. Then it will go to position 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, which is where Syl is. So always put your most delicate champions in the further rows back, just to make sure that they don't take the stun by mistake. But guys, that is going to be it for this video. I hope it's been helpful. I've definitely had a load of conversations about this on my stream and stuff like that. I stream 5 nights a week if you want to come and catch me on there and discuss it. It is a little bit down to which champions you're using, how you speed tune them, all that type of good stuff. But yeah, guys, up in Hell Hades. I'll catch you soon.